The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor of the Okafor Tower's boardroom, silencing 50 of Lagos's most powerful executives. "Get out!" Chukwemeka Okafor's voice thundered to the 30th floor. "Security! Remove this beggar from my building." But Amara Okonkwo didn't move. Her worn-out sneakers, the ones he just mocked in front of everyone, stayed planted on imported Italian tile. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from rage she'd suppressed for too long. "You want to know who I am?" Her voice cut through the shocked silence. "You want to know why I dared to step into your precious tower?" Before CK could respond, the boardroom doors burst open. Chukwemeka David Okafor. Every head turned. Mrs. Okafor, the matriarch everyone feared more than CK himself, stood in the doorway, her wrapper and ghillie vibrating with fury. But her eyes weren't on her son. They were locked on Amara. The old woman's hand flew to her chest. The color drained from her face. "Chinik M.O.?" she whispered, stumbling forward. "Ngozi? Ngozi, is that you?" "Mama, that's not—" CK started. Her eyes. Her mother's eyes. Mrs. Okafor was crying now, moving toward Amara like a woman seeing a ghost. "You're Ngozi's daughter. You're my Ada's child." The boardroom erupted in confused murmurs. Amara's voice cracked. "You knew my mother?" "Knew her?" Mrs. Okafor pulled a worn photograph from her handbag with shaking hands. "Your mother and I built this empire together. Every naira, every business deal, every—" She turned to her son, her voice now cold as ice. "Chukwemeka, what have you done?" CK's face had gone from angry red to ash gray. "Mama, I don't understand." "This girl," Mrs. Okafor's voice could have cut steel. "This girl you just called a beggar and threw out like trash, she owns 40% of everything you think belongs to you." Hello guys, welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments. What would you have done if this happened to you? Let's dive in. The Lagos sun hadn't yet burned away the morning haze when Amara Okonkwo stood before the glass monstrosity of Okafor Towers. 27 floors of steel and ambition piercing the Victoria Island skyline, each window reflecting a version of herself she barely recognized. 6 months ago, she'd worn confidence like her mother's old jewelry. Now, she wore desperation like the frayed edges of her only interview outfit. "Madam, you could not be standing here." The security guard, name tag reading Emeka, had been patient for the past hour. His patience was wearing thin. "This is not a place for people to loiter." "I have an appointment," Amara lied, clutching her folder of certificates like a shield. First-class honors in business administration from University of Lagos. Top of her class. Intern of the year at 3 different firms before they all downsized. None of it mattered. Not in Lagos. Not without connections. With who? Emeka's eyes said he'd heard this before. Mr. Okafor. The guard laughed, not unkindly, but the sound still stung. "You and 500 other people today, sister. Oya, move along before." "I'll wait." "For what? You think Oga CK comes through these doors like a common man? He flies helicopter to the roof." Emeka shook his head. "Go home. This is not your level. Not your level." Those 3 words had haunted Amara since her mother died 2 years ago, since the medical bills swallowed everything, since their small flat in Surulere went to creditors, since she started sleeping in her friend Chioma's boys' quarters behind a house in Yaba, pretending the charity didn't crush her soul daily. Her mother would have fought. Her mother would have marched into that lobby and demanded an audience with God himself if necessary. Her mother was gone, but maybe her fire wasn't. Amara straightened her spine, adjusted her folder, and walked past Emeka before he could stop her. The automatic doors whooshed open, releasing a blast of artificial cold that raised goosebumps on her arms. The lobby was a cathedral of wealth. Marble everywhere, a fountain in the center that probably cost more than her entire education, and people, beautiful people in expensive agbadas and designer suits, gliding across the floor like they owned the very air. She didn't belong here. She knew it. They knew it. but she walked anyway. "Excuse me." A receptionist's sharp voice froze her halfway to the elevators. The woman, impeccable makeup, Lagos accent polished into something almost British, looked Amara up and down like she was calculating her net worth. And finding it wanting, "Where do you think you're going?" "I need to see Mr. Okafor." "Do you have an appointment?" The question hung in the air. The lobby had gone quieter. People were watching now, smelling fresh drama like sharks smell blood. "I need to speak with him about." No appointment means no access. "Security, please." Amara hated the crack in her voice. "I just need 5 minutes. I'm not leaving until—" "That's exactly what you're doing." 2 security men flanked her, professional but firm. "Madam, we don't want Walla. Please respect yourself and leave quietly." But Amara's feet wouldn't move. Couldn't move. Where would she go? Back to Chioma's, where pity lived in every careful smile. Back to the streets she'd pounded for 6 months, handing out CVs that went straight into bins. Back to the hunger that had become so familiar, she sometimes forgot what full felt like. "I said leave." The receptionist's shout echoed through the marble temple. Heads turned. Phones came out. This was entertainment now. The poor girl making a scene. "You people are all the same," the receptionist continued, her voice dripping with contempt. "Coming here to beg for jobs you're not qualified for, disturbing our clients, dragging your poverty through our doors." "I graduated first class." Amara's voice was quiet, but it carried. "I have references from 3. And I have a degree from Oxford," the receptionist snapped. "You think certificate matters without connections? Without money? Look at your shoes, for God's sake. Look at you. This is Okafor Towers, not Charity House." The security men gripped tighter. Amara felt tears burning behind her eyes. Tears of rage, of shame, of every disappointment that had piled up like Lagos traffic. She wouldn't cry. Not here, not for these people. Then the elevator chimed. The lobby's energy shifted instantly. Phones disappeared. Backs straightened. Conversations died mid-sentence. Chukwemeka Okafor stepped into his domain. He was younger than his reputation suggested. Maybe 35, with the kind of grooming that costs more per month than most people earn in a year. His suit was definitely not made in Lagos. Neither was his watch. Neither, probably, was his attitude. He crossed the lobby in long strides, barely glancing at the peasants in his kingdom. But his security detail paused when they saw the commotion. And when security pauses, the king notices. CK's eyes landed on Amara. "What's this?" His voice was casual, almost bored, like he'd seen this movie before and knew how it ended. "Nothing, sir." The receptionist rushed forward. "Just removing an unauthorized person." "I'm not unauthorized," Amara found herself saying. "I'm qualified. I'm—" CK laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was sharp and cold, and the lobby laughed with him, because when the king laughs, the court laughs. Qualified. He walked closer, circling her like a buyer examining merchandise. "With those shoes—" He pointed at her worn sneakers, the ones she glued back together last week. "With that cheap folder from Ida Motor Market?" His finger jabbed toward her certificates. "Let me guess. First class from Unilag? Top of your class? Intern of the year?" Each word was a slap. Each guess was exactly right. Each right answer was used to humiliate her. "You're just another desperate girl who thinks education and ambition are enough." CK's smile was cruel. "This is business, not a Nollywood movie. Go back to wherever you came from and stop wasting my time. Security, if she's not out of this building in 30 seconds, you're all fired." He turned away, dismissing her from existence. And something in Amara snapped. "My mother always said," her voice rang out clear and strong, "that a man who mocks the poor is a fool who forgot where he came from. She said Lagos is a small place, and the person you step on today might be the bridge you need tomorrow." CK paused. Didn't turn around, but paused. "Your mother sounds like she was full of poor people's wisdom." His voice floated back, casual cruelty perfected. "Very inspiring. Now get out." The security men lifted her, actually lifted her and began carrying her toward the door. The phones were definitely out now. This would be on Legos Twitter within minutes. Hashtag poor girl removed. Hashtag Okafor Towers drama. Another viral moment of humiliation. Amara didn't struggle, didn't scream. She just stared at CK's back as they carried her away and whispered words only she could hear. She also said your mother's name, Mrs. Okafor, Mama Chukwu, her best friend, the woman who betrayed her. But no one heard. Not yet. Mrs. Okafor's driver had tried to warn her. Madam, Olga said you should rest today. The doctor said. Since when do I take orders from my son? She'd snapped, adjusting her gold-threaded gelly in the Mercedes mirror. Drive me to the office. Now. Something had pulled her from bed that morning. A dream. No, a memory. Ngozi's face, young and laughing, sitting across from her in their tiny shared office 25 years ago. Mama Chukwu, when we make it big, promise me something. Promise me that if anything happens to me, you'll take care of my daughter. Mrs. Okafor had woken with tears on her pillow. Now, stepping into the lobby of the tower her money had helped build, she saw the commotion immediately. Security men carrying a young woman toward the exit. Her son's back, rigid with authority, walking away. The receptionist's triumphant smirk. And the girl's face. Time stopped. Mrs. Okafor's knees went weak. Her driver caught her elbow. Madam, that girl, she whispered. Stop them. Stop them. Her voice carried the authority of someone who'd built empires before her son knew how to walk. The security men froze. CK turned, irritation flashing across his face until he saw his mother's expression. Mama, what are you doing here? The doctor said. But Mrs. Okafor was already moving, faster than her 70 years should allow, pushing past confused executives and curious onlookers. She reached Amara and gripped her face with both hands, studying every feature with desperate intensity. Your name, she demanded, her voice breaking. Tell me your name. Amara. Amara Okonkwo. Okonkwo. Mrs. Okafor's hands trembled. And your mother? Your mother's name? Ngozi. Ngozi Okonkwo. She died 2 years ago. The old woman's wail pierced the lobby like a knife. Chinik. Ngozi is gone. My Ada is gone. She pulled Amara into an embrace so fierce, so unexpected, that the girl could only stand there, frozen in confusion, while this stranger sobbed into her shoulder. CK approached carefully. Mama, who is this girl? How you know her mother? Mrs. Okafor pulled back, her face wet with tears, but her eyes had gone hard. How do I know her mother? Her mother was my partner, my sister, my best friend. Her mother funded your first business when no bank would touch you. Her mother. She stopped, her gaze sweeping the watching crowd. Not here. Everyone out. Now. The lobby cleared in seconds. Even CK's top executives scattered like birds. When his mother used that tone, empires trembled. When only family and security remained, Mrs. Okafor turned to her son. 26 years ago, I met Ngozi Okonkwo at a women's cooperative meeting in Surulere. We were both young, both hungry, both tired of being told women couldn't build businesses. She walked to the fountain, her reflection rippling in the water. We started small, selling fabric, then importing, then real estate. We were partners. 50-50. Everything we built together. CK's face showed confusion. But Papa always said you started the business alone, that he gave you the capital. Your father? Mrs. Okafor's laugh was bitter. Your father gave me nothing but headaches and conditions. It was Ngozi who had the money. Her family had land they'd sold. She invested everything into our partnership. Everything. She turned to Amara, her eyes searching the girl's face for echoes of her friend. Then you were born. Ngozi's husband, your father, he died in an accident just 3 months later. She was devastated. Lost. She wanted to quit everything and go back to her village. But she didn't, Amara whispered. She always told me Lagos was her home. Because I convinced her to stay. I told her we were family now. that I would help her raise you, that our businesses would take care of both our children. Mrs. Okafor's voice cracked. We expanded, made millions, then billions. We were unstoppable. So what happened? CK asked quietly. Where has she been all these years? Why didn't I ever meet her? Mrs. Okafor closed her eyes. Your father happened. He was jealous, angry that his wife's success came from another woman's money. He started poisoning my mind. Told me Ngozi was cheating me, that she was cooking the books, that she was planning to take everything and leave me with nothing. And you believe him? Amara's voice was small, hurt. I was young, stupid, blinded by fear. Tears streamed down the old woman's face. I confronted Ngozi, accused her of terrible things. We fought, said things that can't be unsaid. She left the partnership, signed everything over to me, said she wanted nothing from a woman who thought so little of her. The lobby was silent, except for Mrs. Okafor's weeping. I tried to find her, she continued. For years I tried, but she'd disappeared. Changed her number. Moved. I sent investigators, private detectives. Nothing. It was like she'd vanished from Lagos entirely. She didn't vanish, Amara said softly. She just became invisible. She worked 3 jobs to raise me, cleaned offices at night, sold food during the day, took in sewing on weekends. We lived in a single room in Ajigunle. She never complained, never told me we used to have money. She just worked herself to death to keep me in good schools. CK's face had lost all color. Mama, are you saying? I'm saying this empire was built on Ngozi's money, on her sacrifice, on her trust. Mrs. Okafor pulled a worn leather folder from her handbag, something she'd clearly been carrying for years. Your father hid these documents. I found them after he died, but by then I'd given up hope of ever finding Ngozi again. She handed them to CK. His hands shook as he read. Partnership agreement. Okafor Okonkwo Enterprises. 50-50 ownership. Dated 1999. Dissolution agreement. Dated 2003. Ngozi's signature, dissolving the partnership but with a clause. In the event of my death, 40% of all business interests shall be held in trust for my daughter, Amara Okonkwo, until her 25th birthday. CK looked up, his face ashen. How old are you? 24, Amara whispered. My birthday is in 3 weeks. The words hung in the air like thunder. 3 weeks, Mrs. Okafor repeated, her voice now steel beneath the tears. In 3 weeks, this girl becomes the largest minority shareholder in Okafor Industries. Whether you like it or not, whether she was wearing expensive shoes or not, whether you mocked her or not. She turned to her son with a look that made him step back. You humiliated the daughter of the woman who made you. You called her a beggar when her mother's money bought your first office. You threw her out like trash when she owns nearly half of everything you stand on. I didn't know, CK started. You didn't ask. His mother's shout echoed off marble and glass. You saw a poor girl and assumed she was worthless. Just like Lagos taught you. Just like this cruel city teaches everyone. You became exactly what I raised you not to be. She turned to Amara, taking her hands. My daughter, because that's what you are, what you always were. Your mother and I were sisters in everything but blood, which makes you my child too. I don't understand. Amara's voice trembled. Why didn't she tell me? Why did she let us suffer when she could have claimed what was hers? Pride, Mrs. Okafor said simply, and pain. She couldn't bear to face me again after what I'd accused her of. And probably, her voice broke, probably she wanted to protect you from this world. From people like my son, who measure worth in naira instead of character. CK stood frozen, the documents in his hands, suddenly feeling heavier than buildings. What do we do now? He finally asked. Mrs. Okafor looked at Amara, really looked at her. The worn shoes, the cheap folder, the pride that poverty couldn't quite extinguish. She saw her friend in every line of that face. Now, she said, now we face the board. Because when they find out about this, when they learn 40% of this company is about to go to an outsider, They will do everything in their power to make sure it doesn't happen. Why would they fight it? Amara asked. It's legal, isn't it? Mrs. Okafor and CK exchanged a look, because CK said quietly, understanding dawning in his eyes, 40% isn't just money. It's control. It's power. It's the deciding vote in a board that's currently split down the middle between my allies and my enemies. And they'll destroy you before they let you take it. Mrs. Okafor finished. Which is why we need to call an emergency board meeting. Today. Now. Before anyone can prepare. She smiled at Amara, a warrior's smile. Your mother taught you to survive, child. Now, let me teach you what she and I learned together. How to fight. Welcome to the family business. The 30th floor boardroom felt like a courtroom. 20 directors sat around a table that could seat twice that number, deliberately intimidating in its vastness. CK stood at the head, his mother to his right, and Amara, still in her worn shoes and cheap interview outfit, sat in the guest chair like an accused awaiting judgment. The vultures had gathered quickly. This is highly irregular. Marcus Adiemi spoke first. CFO, CK's late father's best friend, and the man who'd been quietly positioning himself to challenge CK's leadership for years. Calling an emergency session without agenda, without proper notice. The agenda is justice. Mrs. Okafor cut him off. Something this board has conveniently forgotten. She stood, placing a leather folder on the table. In 1999, I entered into a partnership with Ngozi Okonkwo. She provided the capital, 200 million naira, which in today's money would be worth billions. We built this company together. Murmurs rippled through the room. In 2003, due to circumstances I deeply regret, that partnership was dissolved. But not before my partner ensured her daughter would inherit 40% of everything we'd built. She opened the folder. These documents were hidden by my late husband. I discovered them 7 years ago, but couldn't locate Ngozi or her child. Until today. She gestured to Amara. This is Amara Okonkwo, Ngozi's daughter. And in 3 weeks, she turns 25, the age stipulated in the agreement for her inheritance to vest. The room exploded. This is absurd. Marcus was on his feet. You can't seriously expect us to honor a 20-year-old document. It's legally binding. Mrs. Okafor's lawyer, she called him from the lobby, stood with copies for every board member, reviewed and notarized. Miss Okonkwo's claim is ironclad. Even if it's legal, another director interjected. Patience Obi, head of operations and Marcus's ally. The girl knows nothing about running a business of this scale. 40% in untrained hands could destroy everything. Untrained. Amara's voice was quiet, but it carried. Everyone turned to look at her. First-class honors in business administration. Internships at 3 of your competitor firms where I consistently exceeded projections. I may not have your expensive suits or connections, but don't mistake poverty for incompetence. Well said. Mrs. Okafor smiled. But there's more you all need to know. She pulled out another document. This one clearly older, the paper yellowed with age. My original partnership with Ngozi wasn't just capital contribution. We made promises, documented promises about how this company would be run. CK leaned forward. Even he hadn't seen this document. We promised, his mother read, that Okafor Okonkwo Enterprises would prioritize 3 things: ethical business practices, community investment, and opportunities for those Lagos had left behind. She looked up. We promised to remember where we came from, to build an empire that lifted others, not just ourselves. Beautiful sentiment, Marcus said dryly, but sentiment doesn't pay dividends. Doesn't it? Mrs. Okafor's eyes flashed. This company's reputation was built on those principles. Every charity, every community program, every scholarship that bore my name, those were Ngozi's ideas. Her insistence, her moral compass. She turned to CK. Your father stripped all of that away after she left. Turned us into just another corporation chasing profit. And you, her voice softened but didn't lose its edge. You continued his path. When was the last time you funded a scholarship? Invested in community development? Remember that Lagos gave you everything. CK had no answer. So here's what's going to happen, Mrs. Okafor continued. Amara will receive her 40%. But more than that, she will join this board. She will have a voice in every major decision. And we will return to the principles her mother and I founded this company on. Over my dead body, Marcus stood again. I will fight this in every court in Nigeria. I will tie this up in litigation for years. That girl will never see a kobo. Uncle Marcus. CK's voice was soft, but it froze the older man mid-sentence. Sit down. Excuse me? I said sit. Down. The room held its breath. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The generational clash. The young king versus the old guard. CK walked around the table slowly, his footsteps echoing on hardwood. For years, you've been questioning my leadership, whispering that I'm too young, too impulsive, that I don't understand the old ways. He stopped behind Marcus's chair. But the old ways were built on my mother's genius and Miss Okonkwo's money. Ways that you, all of you, have profited from while erasing the woman who made it possible. He placed both hands on the table, leaning in. So here are your options. Accept Miss Okonkwo as a board member with full rights to her 40%. Or resign. Today. Right now. Because I'm done pretending this company belongs to anyone except the people who actually build it. You can't force us out, Patience said. We have contracts that contain morality clauses. CK's lawyer interjected smoothly, specifically regarding fraudulent concealment of ownership. Every board member who knew about or benefited from hiding Miss Okonkwo's mother's stake could face criminal charges. The room went silent. My father hid those documents, CK continued. But some of you knew. Some of you were there in 2003 when Ngozi Okonkwo walked away. Some of you benefited when her shares were quietly absorbed into the company rather than held in trust as stipulated. He looked at Marcus specifically. You were Papa's CFO then. You signed off on the restructuring. So either you were incompetent and didn't notice 40% of ownership vanishing, or you were complicit. Which is it? Marcus's face had gone from red to gray. Your father assured me it was handled legally. Then you won't mind a full audit of all transactions from 2003 to present? Because I'm ordering one. Today. Amara watched, stunned, as CK systematically dismantled opposition. This wasn't the cruel man from the lobby. This was someone else entirely. Someone calculating, strategic, and utterly in control. Miss Okonkwo. CK turned to her, his face unreadable. I owe you an apology. Several, actually. I judged you on your appearance rather than your merit. I mocked you when I should have listened. I threw you out of the building your mother helped construct. He extended his hand. I can't undo that, but I can ensure it never happens again, to you or anyone else who walks through those doors desperate for a chance. Amara stared at his hand. Every instinct screamed not to trust him. This was strategy, not sincerity. He was protecting his empire, not making amends. But she took his hand anyway, because her mother had taught her something else. Sometimes you have to work with snakes to build something beautiful. I accept your apology, she said clearly, and I accept my seat on this board. But I have conditions. Mrs. Okafor's smile widened. There's Ngozi's daughter. Go on, child. First, every entry-level position interviews at least 5 candidates who graduated from public universities. Second, we restart the community scholarship program, full funding for 50 students per year. Third, we establish a transparent audit system so no one can hide documents or ownership ever again. She looked around the table, meeting each director's eyes. My mother lost everything because people valued money over integrity. I won't let that happen again. So either we build a company she dreamed of, or I'll take my 40% and burn this whole thing down to build something better. The silence was deafening. Then Mrs. Okafor started clapping. Slow, deliberate, proud. Welcome to the board, Miss Okonkwo. Marcus gathered his papers with shaking hands. I resign, effective immediately. Same, Patience added. This company is what I signed up for. For more directors followed. By the time the dust settled, Nearly half the board had walked out. CK watched them go without expression, then turned to his mother. That was expensive. Those were some of our most experienced people. Experience in corruption isn't experience worth keeping, she replied. We'll rebuild. Better this time. With respect, Mrs. Okafor, Amara said quietly, we're about to face a fight. Those people won't just disappear quietly. They'll talk to competitors, to media, to anyone who will listen. By tomorrow, all of Lagos will know about this. Good. CK said, surprising everyone. Let them talk. Let Lagos know that Okafor Industries was built on a partnership with a woman history forgot. Let them know we're correcting that injustice. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling our PR team. We're getting ahead of this story. Full disclosure. Press conference tomorrow morning. Are you sure? His mother asked. Admitting your father had ownership documents. It could damage the family name. The family name was damaged the moment he betrayed his wife's partner. CK replied. We're just finally acknowledging it. He looked at Amara with something like respect. Besides, Lagos loves a redemption story. Billionaire makes right his father's wrongs by giving the beggar he mocked her rightful inheritance? That's viral gold. I'm not your redemption story, Amara said coldly, and I'm not a beggar. I never was. No, CK agreed. You're a board member. And unless I'm very much mistaken, you're about to become the most watched woman in Nigerian business. Ready? Amara thought her mother. Working 3 jobs, hiding tears, building Amara's future one sacrifice of time. She thought of every door slammed in her face, every pitying look, every whisper that she wasn't their level. I've been ready my whole life, she said. Let's get to work. The press conference had been a nightmare, or a triumph, depending on who you asked. Billionaire's secret partner revealed. The headline screamed, Okafor empire built on hidden woman's fortune. Twitter had exploded. Instagram was on fire. TikTok detectives were digging up everything they could find about Ngozi Okonkwo, piecing together her life from old records and forgotten photographs. And Amara, who'd gone to bed in Chioma's boys' quarters, woke up in a luxury suite at the Eco Hotel because Mrs. Okafor had insisted. My daughter doesn't sleep in borrowed rooms anymore. But not everyone was celebrating. You've made us a target, Samuel Okoro, one of the remaining board members, said during the emergency strategy session 3 days later. Every journalist, every competitor, every regulatory body is now examining us with microscopes. We've lost 30% of our stock value since the announcement. Temporary. CK replied, though his jaw was tight. It'll recover once people see we're serious about reform. Will it? Samuel pressed. Because Marcus has been talking to our competitors. Word is Technova is preparing a hostile takeover bid. They smell blood in the water. Technova, Lagos's second-largest tech conglomerate, run by Victor Obinna, a man who'd been trying to crush Okafor Industries for a decade. If he got wind that the company was fractured, vulnerable, let him try, Mrs. Okafor said firmly. We control 60% combined, 40% Amara's, 20% mine. CK has another 25. We're untouchable. Unless Miss Okonkwo's claim gets tied up in court, Samuel said carefully, which is exactly what Marcus is trying to do. He filed a lawsuit yesterday challenging the validity of the original partnership agreement. Amara's blood went cold. Can he do that? He's doing it, CK's lawyer confirmed, claiming the documents were forged, that the signatures are questionable, that the statute of limitations has expired. It's nonsense, but it'll take months to resolve. And until it's resolved, your shares are frozen. Which means, Samuel continued, for the next several months, CK's 25% and Mrs. Okafor's 20% are all that stand between us and a takeover. The other board members combined hold 30%. If any of them sell to Victor Obinna, he didn't need to finish. The math was simple and devastating. So what do we do? CK asked, looking at Amara. This is your inheritance they're attacking. Amara stood, pacing to the window. Below, Lagos sprawled, millions of people hustling, surviving, dreaming. How many of them were like her mother? working themselves to death while the wealthy played games with their futures? We fight, she said simply, but not just in court. We show Lagos, show Nigeria why this company matters, why my mother's vision matters. How? Mrs. Okafor asked, leaning forward. The scholarship program. We launch it immediately. Not 50 students, 500. Full funding, including housing and stipends. That's 20 million naira, Samuel protested. We can't afford that right now. We can't afford not to, Amara interrupted. Victor Obina's company is profitable, but it's soulless. Everyone knows it. They underpay workers, dodge taxes, crush small businesses. But they're successful. They're powerful. She turned back to the room. We need to remind Lagos that there's another way to be successful, that you can make money and keep your humanity. That's what my mother believed. That's what she and Mrs. Okafor started. CK was nodding slowly. It's good strategy. Makes us look principled while making Victor look like the villain. But it's not enough. We need something bigger. Something that changes the narrative completely. I might have something, Mrs. Okafor said quietly. But it's risky, and it requires Amara to trust me completely. Everyone turned to her. Ngozi and I didn't just have business plans, the old woman continued. We had dreams. One dream specifically. A technology incubator for young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds. Free training, seed funding, mentorship. We'd purchased land for it in 2002, 10 acres in Lekki. What happened to it? Amara asked. My husband sold it, said it was a waste of resources. Mrs. Okafor's voice was bitter. But I kept the original plans, the blueprints, the entire vision documented. If we announce we're building it now, that we're turning Ngozi's dream into reality, it becomes a symbol, proof that we're serious about honoring her legacy. That's brilliant, CK said. But you said it's risky. How? Because we'd need to buy back the land. From Victor Obina. Mrs. Okafor let that sink in. My husband sold it to him 15 years ago. Victor's been sitting on it, waiting for the area to develop. By now, it's worth 50 times what we got for it. He'll never sell to us, Samuel said flatly. Not when he's trying to take us over. He might, Amara said slowly, an idea forming. If I'm the one who asks. Everyone stared at her. Think about it. I'm Lagos's hot news story. The poor girl who inherited billions. Every media house wants an interview. What if I give Victor an exclusive? Tell him I want to meet the man who bought my mother's dream. Play on his ego. That's dangerous, CK said immediately. Victor is ruthless. He'll try to manipulate you, turn you against us. Let him try, Amara replied. I've survived worse than Victor Obina. I've survived Lagos. Mrs. Okafor studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Your mother used to say the same thing. Lagos tests you, but it can't break you unless you let it. All right, we do this. But not alone. CK goes with you. Absolutely not, both Amara and CK said simultaneously. They looked at each other, surprised. I don't need a babysitter, Amara said. And I don't want to be one, CK added. But Mama's right. Victor will respect the meeting more if I'm there. And honestly, he paused, something vulnerable crossing his face. I owe it to your mother, to you. I threw you out of my building. Let me at least help protect you from someone worse than I was. Amara wanted to refuse, but strategy mattered more than pride. Fine, but I lead the conversation. You're just moral support. CK's lip twitched, almost a smile. Moral support. From a man who called you a beggar. The irony isn't lost on me. Good, Amara said. Don't let it be. Victor Obina's office made Okafor Towers look humble. The man clearly believed subtlety was for the poor. Miss Okonkwo. He greeted her like an old friend, though his eyes calculated her worth like a spreadsheet. And Chukwemeka, what an unexpected pleasure. Thank you for seeing us, Amara said, shaking his hand. His grip was too firm, too long, a power play. How could I refuse? The whole city is talking about you. Poor girl makes good. It's quite the story. He gestured to leather chairs that probably cost more than her mother's lifetime earnings. Though I must admit, I'm surprised you're here. Last I heard, you and the Okafors were one big happy family. We are, CK said evenly, which is why we're here. We want to buy back the land in Lekki, the 10 acres your father sold you from our portfolio. Victor's smile widened. Ah, the incubator project. Yes, I remember. Sentimental value, I'm sure. Unfortunately, that land is part of my long-term development strategy. I'm afraid it's not for sale. Everything's for sale, Amara said, at the right price. True, but can you afford the right price? Victor leaned back. That land is worth 2 billion naira now. Maybe more. And last I checked, your shares are frozen pending litigation. So unless Mrs. Okafor is willing to liquidate significant assets, what if we offer something else? Amara interrupted. What if I offer my interview? Exclusive. Your media company gets first rights to my story. The real story from my perspective. Victor's eyes gleamed. That's worth something. But not 2 billion naira. What if I also consulted on your corporate social responsibility programs? Amara pressed. Face it, Victor. Your company's reputation is trash. Everyone knows you're profitable, but heartless. But if the girl who inherited billions chooses to work with you, that's powerful PR. She was playing a dangerous game, offering herself as a trophy, knowing it would insult him enough to reveal his true intentions. You think I need charity advice from someone who was begging for jobs 3 weeks ago? Victor's mask slipped. There was the real man, the one who measured worth and power, and everyone else was beneath him. I think you need legitimacy, Amar replied calmly. Something you can't buy. And I'm offering it. The land, plus I consult for 6 months on your CSR programs. In exchange, you drop your takeover bid on Okafor Industries. The room went silent. CK's head whipped toward her. Amara, let her speak, Victor said, suddenly very interested. Go on. You don't want Okafor Industries, Amara continued. You want what it represents. Legacy, respect, the thing your father could never give you no matter how much money he made. She'd done her research. Victor's father had been Lagos's most notorious corporate raider. Wealthy beyond measure, hated universally. Victor had spent his whole life trying to rehabilitate the family name while using the same ruthless tactics. You help us build my mother's dream, Amara said, and your name goes on it, not as owner, as partner, as a man who chose to build something instead of tear it down. That's the story Lagos will tell. That's the legacy you actually want. Victor stared at her for a long moment, then laughed, genuine surprise breaking through his calculating facade. You're either brilliant or insane, possibly both. I'm my mother's daughter, Amara said simply. She taught me that everyone wants something. You just have to figure out what. You don't want our company. You want redemption. And you think you can give me that? I think if you destroy us, you're just another villain. But if you help us, you're the man who chose differently than his father. That's the headline I'll give your media company. Victor Obinna, breaking the cycle. CK was barely breathing. This was insane. Offering herself up to their biggest enemy. But it was also working. Victor stood, walking to his window. Lagos spread below him, his kingdom, his battlefield, his prison. 2 billion for the land, he finally said, plus 20% of the incubator's equity. My name on the building as founding partner, and your exclusive interview. 15% equity, Amara countered, and my mother's name goes first on the building. Done. Victor turned, extending his hand. You're either going to revolutionize Lagos business or crash spectacularly. Either way, I want a front row seat. As they shook hands, Amara felt CK's eyes on her. When they left Victor's office and reached the elevator, he finally spoke. That was the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen. I can't decide which. Both, Amara said tiredly. The adrenaline was crashing. It was definitely both. You just gave our enemy equity in your mother's dream project. No, Amara corrected. I gave a desperate man a chance to be different than his father, just like I'm giving you a chance to be different than yours. The elevator doors closed. In the reflection, she saw CK's face, something shifting, some calculation giving way to something more human. Your mother must have been extraordinary, he said quietly. She was, Amar replied, and she would have done exactly the same thing, because she understood something Lego forgets. Everyone's fighting their own battle. Sometimes the only way to win is to stop fighting and start building. The elevator descended. Above them, Victor Obinna watched from his window, wondering if he'd just been played by a 24-year-old who'd been begging for a job a month ago. He had been. And somehow, he didn't mind at all. 3 weeks later, the Ngozi Okonkwo Victor Obinna Technology Incubator broke ground in Lekki. 500 scholarship recipients attended the ceremony. Every major news outlet in Nigeria covered it, and Lagos Twitter couldn't decide what was more shocking, that Victor Obinna was building something instead of destroying it, or that the poor girl from the viral video was now one of Africa's youngest billionaires. Because the courts had finally ruled, Marcus's lawsuit had been dismissed with prejudice. The documents were authentic. The inheritance was valid. Amara's 40% was hers. All of it. But the real shock came at the board meeting immediately following the groundbreaking. I'm transferring 35% of my shares, Amara announced the silent boardroom, into a trust. The Ngozi Okonkwo Foundation for Emerging Entrepreneurs. It will fund the incubator, the scholarships, and provide seed capital for young business owners from disadvantaged backgrounds. That's almost your entire inheritance, CK said, stunned. You retain only 5%, which is still more money than my mother saw in her lifetime. Amar replied, I don't need billions, CK. I need purpose. My mother worked herself to death building other people's dreams. This way, her money builds thousands of people's dreams, including mine. Mrs. Okafor was crying again, but smiling through the tears. Your mother would be so proud. But child, keep at least 10%. You'll need voting power to ensure the foundation's vision is protected. 10% then, Amar agreed, but the rest goes to the foundation. Immediately, Samuel cleared his throat. Miss Okonkwo, with respect, this is unprecedented. You're giving away 30% of one of Nigeria's largest companies to charity. Not charity, Amara corrected. Investment in people Lagos has written off. People like my mother, like me. She looked around the table. Everyone in this room was born into opportunity or money or connections. You've never known what it's like to have brilliance trapped inside poverty, to have dreams suffocated by circumstance. She stood, her voice carrying the weight of every struggle, every closed door, every pitying look. My mother died at 52. Her body simply gave out. The doctor said it was heart failure. But I know what really killed her, exhaustion. Soul-deep exhaustion from fighting a system designed to keep people like us down. I could keep all 40%. Buy a mansion. Live the life she never had. But that wouldn't honor her. That would be wasting her sacrifice. Amara's eyes blazed. She didn't work 3 jobs so I could become another wealthy person hoarding resources. She worked 3 jobs so I could change the system that killed her. The room was absolutely silent. So yes, Amara continued, I'm giving away billions. But really, I'm investing them in the only thing that matters, making sure no other child watches their parent die from the exhaustion of simply trying to survive. CK was staring at her like he was seeing her for the first time. You're serious. You're actually going to do this. I already have. My lawyer filed the paperwork this morning. The foundation is established. The transfer is complete. She smiled, and for the first time since entering Okafor Towers that desperate morning, it was a smile of pure joy. I'm not a billionaire anymore. I'm just a board member with enough voting power to be annoying and enough purpose to be dangerous. You're going to change everything, Mrs. Okafor whispered. Everything we built, everything we lost, everything we could have been, you're going to make it real. We're going to make it real, Amara corrected, because I'm going to need help. Mrs. Okafor, I want you to chair the foundation's board. You knew my mother's vision better than anyone. Yes, the old woman said without hesitation. 1,000 times yes. Samuel, I need your financial expertise to ensure the foundation is sustainable. Will you serve as treasurer? Samuel looked shocked. I question your every move. I doubted you, which is exactly why I need you. I need people who ask hard questions, not yes men. Amara smiled. Will you do it? It would be an honor. And CK, Amara turned to him, her expression unreadable. I need your ambition, your drive, your understanding of how to build empires. I need you to serve as a foundation strategic advisor. CK stood slowly. Amara, I threw you out of my building. I mocked your poverty. I called you a beggar. Why would you trust me with your mother's legacy? Because you learned, Amara said simply. Because when you saw the truth, you didn't make excuses. You changed. Because my mother always said people deserve second chances if they're brave enough to admit they need them. She extended her hand. You humiliated me in that lobby. Now help me ensure no one else ever feels that humiliation again. Use your power to lift instead of crush. That's your redemption, if you want it. CK looked at her hand. The hand he refused to shake. The hand that had held worn-out certificates. The hand that was offering him something he didn't deserve but desperately needed. He took it. I don't deserve this, but I'll spend every day earning it. I promise you that. Good, Amara said. Then let's get to work. 6 months later, the Ngozi Okonkwo Foundation's first cohort graduated to thunderous applause. 100 young entrepreneurs from Ajigunle, Mushin, Ajij, Lagos's forgotten neighborhoods, presented business plans to a room full of investors. 62 received full funding on the spot. Amara watched in the back of the auditorium, tears streaming down her face. She kept her promise. Her mother's money was changing lives. She would be so proud of you. Amara turned to find CK standing beside her, also watching the graduates celebrate. In 6 months, he'd transformed. Still ambitious, still driven, but the cruelty had been replaced with purpose. He now spent 2 days a week mentoring foundation participants, teaching them the ruthless business tactics he'd once used only for profit. I hope so, Amara said softly. Some days I wonder if I did the right thing, giving away so much. You did, CK said with certainty. You know how I know? Because Okafor Industries stock is an all-time high. Turns out investors love companies with actual values. Customer loyalty is up 40%. Employee retention is the best in our sector. He smiled. Doing good is good business. Your mother knew that. It just took us decades to figure it out. And Victor's company is copying our model. Started their own foundation last month. Nowhere near as generous as ours, but still, the man's actually trying to be better. CK laughed. You broke Lagos. Amara, you broke the whole system just by refusing to play by its rules. I didn't break it, Amara corrected. I just reminded it what it could be. On stage, a young woman from Akoko, Lagos's infamous floating slum, was accepting her funding check, sobbing with joy. Her business plan was for a waste management company that would clean Lagos's waterways while providing jobs to slum residents. That could have been my mother, Amara whispered, if someone had just given her a chance. Just one person believing in her instead of judging her. It could have been you, CK said quietly, if my mother hadn't walked into that lobby, if she hadn't recognized you. You'd still be job hunting, still being dismissed, still being called a beggar. I know, Amara said. That's why this matters so much. Because luck shouldn't determine everything. Your mother happened to walk in at the right moment. But most people don't get that miracle. Most people just disappear. Like my mom almost did. She turned to face him fully. That's why I can't stop. Why I won't stop. Every person we fund, every scholarship we give, every door we open, that's one more person who doesn't need a miracle. They just need a chance. CK nodded slowly. You know, that day in the lobby, I keep replaying in my head the things I said, the way I looked at you. I see that version of myself, and I barely recognize him. Good, Amara said. That means you've grown. The man who threw me out couldn't have built this. She gestured to the celebrating graduates. But the man standing here now, he can change Lagos. If he wants to. I want to, CK said. Then, more quietly, thank you for giving me the chance to be better. Thank my mother, Amar replied. She's the one who taught me everyone deserves redemption, even billionaires who mock poor girls in lobbies. They stood in comfortable silence, watching dreams become reality. Outside, Lagos hummed with its usual chaos, traffic, noise, millions of people hustling through another day. But inside this room, something different was happening, something that would ripple outward, changing the city one graduate at a time. Mrs. Okafor joined them, leaning heavily on her cane but smiling wider than Amara had ever seen. Your mother and I used to dream about this exact moment. Young people from everywhere, given real chances, building real futures. She would stand right here and cry just like you're doing. Tell me about her, Amara said, not the business partner, not the victim. Tell me about Ngozi before Lagos hardened her, before she had to fight so hard just to survive. Mrs. Okafor's eyes grew distant, seeing into the past. She was funny. People forget that. So serious about business, but in private, she could make me laugh until I cried. She did impressions of our competitors. Terrible, offensive impressions that we could never share publicly. She chuckled at the memory, and she was stubborn. Lord, so stubborn. Once she believed in something, you couldn't move her with dynamite. When I wanted to give up on the business, it was 2001. We had a terrible quarter. She literally locked me in our office and wouldn't let me leave until I remembered why we started. What did she say? Amara asked. She said, we're not building this for us. We're building it for the girls who'll come after us. The ones who'll walk into rooms and not be dismissed because we proved women can build empires. And then she smiled and said, also, I didn't sacrifice my 20s to this business just so you could have a bad 3 months and quit. Get back to work, Mama Chukwu. Amara laughed through her tears. That sounds like her. She never let me quit anything either. Even when we had no food, no money, no hope, she'd say, Amara, winners don't quit when it's hard. They quit when it's done. And we're not done yet. You're so much like her, Mrs. Okafor said, squeezing Amara's hand. But you're also different. She had to fight alone. You're building an army. These graduates, the foundation, even CK, you're creating something she never had. A community of people who believe what you believe. That's because of you, Amara said. You gave me the platform, the resources, the legitimacy. No, child, I gave you what was already yours. What you did with it, that's all you. Mrs. Okafor's eyes gleamed with pride. Your mother protected you from this world, kept you away from the business, the betrayals, the cruelty. She wanted you to have a normal childhood, but she also trained you whether she meant to or not. Every late night she worked, every sacrifice she made, you were watching, learning. Learning that success means nothing if you achieve it by stepping on others, Amara finished. Learning that real wealth is what you give away, not what you keep. Exactly. Mrs. Okafor pulled both Amara and CK into an embrace. My son, my daughter, you're building the world Ngozi and I dreamed of. The world Lagos needs but doesn't know how to ask for. Don't stop. No matter how hard it gets, don't stop. We won't, they said together. 1 year later. Breaking news. The Ngozi Okonkwo Foundation has just announced its largest initiative yet, a 1 billion naira fund for healthcare workers in underserved communities. The announcement comes on what would have been Ngozi Okonkwo's 55th birthday. Amara turned off the television in her modest apartment. She'd refused to move into anything extravagant and looked at the photograph on her wall. Her mother, young and smiling, standing beside Mrs. Okafor at their first office. 2 women who dared to dream in a city that told them to know their place. We did it, Mama, Amara whispered. We're changing Lagos. 1 person, 1 chance, 1 dream at a time. Her phone buzzed. A text from CK. Board meeting tomorrow. Foundation wants to expand to Abuja and Port Harcourt. Your mother's legacy is going national. She'd be amazed. Amara smiled, typing back. She wouldn't be amazed. She'd say, "What took you so long? I thought you were supposed to be smart." "LOL, fair. See you tomorrow, partner." Partner. Not boss and employee. Not billionaire and beggar. Just partners building something that mattered. Amara looked around her simple apartment. One bedroom. Clean but modest. Nothing like what she could afford with her remaining shares. But she didn't need more. She had purpose. She had her mother's dream, alive and growing. She had proof that one person, refusing to accept how things had always been, could change everything. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a photo from one of the foundation's graduates. Her waste management company had just secured a contract with the Lagos state government. In the photo, 10 employees from Makoko stood proudly in front of their first truck, wearing matching uniforms, transformed from invisible to indispensable. Amara saved the photo, adding it to the growing collection on her wall. Hundreds of faces, hundreds of dreams made real, hundreds of people who'd been dismissed, overlooked, called beggars, until someone believed in them. "This is for you, Mama," she said to the photograph. "Everything I do is for you, because you taught me the most important lesson Lagos needs to learn. Never judge someone by their shoes, their clothes, or their current circumstances. Judge them by their character, their resilience, their dreams. You were a queen who died in poverty. But your daughter? Your daughter is making sure that never happens to anyone else again." Outside her window, Lagos hummed with possibility. In boardrooms and slums, in towers and tenements, in every corner of the city that had killed her mother with its cruelty, Amara's work was spreading, changing minds, opening doors, proving that another way was possible. The billionaire who'd mocked her, he was now her greatest ally. The empire built on her mother's sacrifice, it was finally honoring that sacrifice. The girl who'd begged for a job, she didn't need a job anymore. She had a mission. And Lagos, stubborn, beautiful, cruel, magnificent Lagos, would never be the same.